Okay, sorry, it kicked me out because the first file didn't work. But let's get started. So, thanks again for coming on today, guys. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to cover the topic today. I think it's really prevalent and something that a lot of us have struggled with. And I think overall, it's maybe not quite as bad as it was at one point, but still an issue and something that we definitely want to get better at. So, today, like you see here, we're going to talk about attracting and hiring high quality candidates with two caveats. Very important caveats is without wasting time and without wasting money. So I wanted to start off the top of the hour or the top of the content with a quick question. What is your biggest challenge right now, and why is it staffing? I think pretty universal across the board is an issue that we're all running into. But the real question is why? Why do you guys think it's an issue? I'd like to see some of your hypotheses or guesses or ideas. Throw it in the chat just so I can kind of see what we're thinking is some of the main reasons of why this is such an issue for us. What do you guys think is the cause? Go ahead, pop it in the chat. I want it to be interactive rather than just me spouting off for a half hour, 45 minutes. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Retired early with COVID, yeah. That's definitely been one. A lot of people think, why bother? Free money, yeah. Although, Bob, apparently that's going to be running out soon, if it hasn't already. Cash flow constraints, yeah. As far as getting, top talent, because it's a competitive market, right? Especially out here, we have a lot of warehouses, and they can pay exactly what you're saying, David. They can pay $20 an hour. And yeah, Chuck, the gig economy. So they have other options now. They can kind of work as they go on their own schedule, and we're not just competing with other employers. We're competing with freelance opportunities, and Uber and DoorDash are one, but even just consultancy or being freelancer or certain sales positions. So there's a lot of reasons out there, and we could probably spend an hour or two talking about what we think it is and what the cause is. But at the end of the day, it's an issue that's not going to go anywhere. So if that's the case, let's talk about how we can do our part. And I was just talking. I was out at the Oklahoma State Show in Oklahoma City, and Bart had a great quote there. And he said that we don't have to save the entire industry. We just need to save our own center. And so we can't fix it for everybody, but we can do some things that put us above and beyond and be able to at least alleviate it for our own particular centers. So I want to go through some stuff today that we've been able to do and see work across different clients and at our centers as well. But first, let's kind of start with the problem of some of the stuff we see. So who here has issues just with not getting enough candidate flow? If that's your main issue, pop that, put a 1 in the chat, if you will, if that's the number one. I talk to some people and they're getting sometimes as low as 1 or 2 applications a month. They're just not getting the flow in. Put a 1 in the chat if that's the issue that you have. Hey, Mike. Yeah. Okay. So that's a big piece, is not getting in front of enough people. I'm going to show you guys in a little bit how we can work on that. What if your issue is poor candidate quality? I think that's a big one. This is a meme that I've seen float around that always makes me chuckle, but it's, unfortunately, sadly, it's kind of true. Every day is a half day if you just leave. And we have people who just, don't show up or leave when they want or put in, half day's work. So, we see a lot of, even if we're, for some of you, getting the candidates is the issue. I think for a lot of us, even if we get the candidates, they're not, yeah, exactly, David, they don't even show up for the interview. So it might as well not even be a candidate, or they don't stay for long. They just don't have the work ethic. Exactly. So because of that, it starts to put level of stress on our operations team, and our level of service starts to go down. We can't service them as well if we're only, 3/4 staffed. And, from us, from Bowling Alley Marketing, we're trying to help people grow. And if you don't have the staff to be able to absorb all that increase in candidate and customers, then you end up having a worse experience if people would never show up at all. So because we don't have the staff to take care of and give people good experience, then our level of service kind of starts to go down with it. So that's the other problem. And then as a result of this, who here is spending way too many hours in their center? I'm probably going to see ones from everybody on that, right? Because we're stuck there. We can't find help. We're trapped in the center all the time. Anybody relate to that? And not just you, but the your staff as well, right? It ends up making your good staff pay. The ones who are, yeah, I like that, Bob. The ones who stick with you and are like the best employees are the ones who end up bearing the brunt of that, right? They're the ones who get burned out because they're always stepping up, and they step up and step up and step up, and they're the ones who end up burning out because we can't find enough people to work and support them. But if it was just, a complaint fest, we wouldn't really, it wouldn't be worth dedicating some time. So I want to switch a little bit to the opportunity of what could potentially be out there to help us alleviate some of these issues. And I don't want to promise that, like, hey, this is a magical formula that's just going to magically fix it all. But there are some things we can do to improve it and make it better. And so I want to talk a little bit about the opportunity to consistently generate candidates so that we could get people to come in on a consistent basis. We have some candidates rolling through, and then we can be a little more picky at that point, right? If we have a nice pool of people to choose from, we can pick the best candidates that best fit what we're looking for. And we don't have to just take anyone with a pulse. We'll be able to get higher quality candidates through this method, where instead of just taking people who are bottom of the barrel, we can start to raise the bar of the employees that we have and start to improve the quality. And a big one, and this is different for everybody, but at least here where I am, and a lot of the people that I've talked to say that it's difficult to compete with some of the bigger employers. I'm going to show you guys how you can compete with them and actually beat them in a lot of different areas. So it's not a matter, we don't want to play their game. We want to play our game so that we can win at it. Now I'm going to show you guys how we can do that. And then ultimately, let's be honest, we're pretty strapped for time, right? It's not like we, like at the top of the presentation, I talked about how to not waste your time. And so if we can create a system to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us, we're actually going to do it, right? Because if it's going to take hours and hours a day, it's just not going to happen. So it's not even worth going through. So to start it off, I want to hear from you guys another time about why it's important to you to get the staffing issue corrected, right? We talked about why we think it's happening, but why does it even matter? I want to hear from you guys a couple things of like why it's important for you to be able to get the a steady stream of candidates coming into your center. Why do you think that's important? What will it allow you to do, or how will it improve your center or your business, or quality of life even? There you go, Roger. Yeah, what's that? Michael Gerber, right? The E-Myth, famous quote. And it's absolutely true. If you're stuck in the business, you can't work on it. No time off. Yep. I like that, Kim. Yeah, better guest service. Be able to provide a better experience because you're not all strained. Less stress, Bob. Yeah, of course. You're not frantically running around because you're not able to get things up to par. People, yeah, I like that, Don, because like we were saying, if we have options, we don't have to settle. We can kind of raise our bar. Enjoy your business. Yep, exactly. Yeah, because I'm sure, Bob, you didn't get in the business to work, 80 hours or 100 hours a week. That wasn't why you started. You want to be able to enjoy it. Preventing burnout. It's right. Having to do it all, wear all the hats. Yeah, and I like that, Andrew. So yeah, we'll finish with that one. I like that the way that your employees treat the customers is a reflection of how they feel about the company and their environment. That's a great insight. Is that if their employees are happy and feel appreciative of the job and enjoy it, they're going to pass that feeling and emotion on to the customers, which in turn gives them a better service. So I really like that. That's one thing I encourage you guys to jot down. So I want to go through a quick case study of some people who have tried what we're talking about. So this is Nick. Him and his family own State 48 out in Arizona. They have 6 different locations that are breweries, but one of them, the one that we work with, has a bowling alley in just outside of Glendale. So he was only getting 1 to 2 applications per month. And mind you, this is like a 6-location brewery and one of them has a bowling center, and they weren't getting anything. So they were going on Indeed, and they would get 1 or 2 applicants per month. So his words were, I had to hire anyone with a pulse. And he's saying, like, kids, high school kids who can't even drink the beer or serving. They had no experience, any requirement. But once they were able to implement this, they were fully staffed within 2 weeks, and they were able to replace poor performing employees. So like the bottom 20%, or I'd have to see exactly what it was, but the bottom employees were then replaced by better employees because he was able to get that flow going. And mind you, they're in a metro area in Phoenix. So for them to go from 1 to 2 applications, they have lots of people around. The other one is John from Rose City Bowl. He was running a 32-lane center with a snack bar with just himself and 3 other employees, which he's just running around like crazy. He's never able to leave the center. But once he was able to put this in place, he was able to get good application. Or at first he was getting applications, but they were low quality, and he had a lot of churn. So they would stay for a week or 2, and because it was so crazy busy and like those 3 employees were like stressed out, then people would come in and be like, screw this, I don't want to do this. But he was able to fill 4 positions in 1 week and kind of patch that hole. And now he's been able to retain people because life is, the center is a little less hectic. So 2 people, this is kind of what it looks like if we can get this right. So it really comes down to 5 key principles at the end of the day. And that's what we're going to cover today. The first one is reframing your approach. And I want to get into the tactical stuff, but I think it makes a lot of sense for us to first talk about some of the mindset. So we're going to talk about that first before we get into the tactical side. We're going to talk about fishing in better ponds, building job ads that actually convert and get applicants, how we can automate a lot of this front-end process, and then following a system that works. So the first piece is reframing your approach. So we want to treat the hiring funnel like it's the back end, just like your customer funnel. All the things that you do to get your customers in the door work to get employees in the door. But instead of coming through the front door, your employees are coming through the back door. So we want to treat it kind of the same way. So an example is like, the way we sometimes look at candidates is not the same as we might look at a lead for business. But I would argue that maybe we should start to think of it that way. So the example I use is that, if the biggest company in town came to you and said, hey, I want to hold an event for our whole company. We want to get catering, the works, everything you have. It's going to be a massive lead. Maybe call it, $5,000 or $10,000, whatever a good lead for you is. How would you treat that lead? How quickly would you respond to them? How in depth would you go in the conversation? Friendly, reach out. Like, you would probably treat them a little bit differently than you would if an application just floated across your desk. But my argument is that employees actually make you a lot more money than customers on a per capita basis. In fact, as an example, if you have $1 million in revenue with 25 employees, you're looking at $40,000 per employee. And I think we all intuitively understand this for our employees, right? For our team, the people who currently work for us. We extend that kind of mentality and caring about them for our current employees. But I don't know if it always extends to the candidates because they feel like they're outsiders, right? They're not part of the team yet. And so we don't always extend that same courtesy or look at them as like a potential $40,000 inflow, right? Do we treat our candidates like they're a potential 40K? That's the first piece. And I don't, it's more or less a set shift where we're thinking not just about how do we get bodies through the door. It's like, how much are these candidates really worth? And do we value them and treat them accordingly? And it's not to knock or say you're doing it wrong, but more or less just like opening our minds a little bit to change our expectation and the way we approach it. Like I said, we're reframing our approach, thinking about it just slightly differently to know that how important these candidates really are to us. So that's what I want to start with as far as the mindset. Next piece I want to move on to is fishing in better ponds. So quick question, and put this in the chat if you guys will. Where do you think your current ideal employees are at the moment? Like, what are they doing? Like, think about the perfect employee that you want to have. Where are they right now? Not geographically, but what are they doing? Yes, Chuck, I like that. Expense rather than asset, but they are your greatest asset, right? Without the team, we're stuck. But yeah, put in the chat if you guys will, like where we think our ideal employees are currently. I want to see what you guys think, not geographically, but where are they in the workforce? First one to get it wins. For the sake of time, we'll move on. The working somewhere else. Exactly. You got it, David. They're working for someone else. The top talent does not have issues getting a job. They have no problem getting a job. Their employers don't want to lose them. They're already employed. So we know that we're trying to pull people away to us because, let's face it, the people who are unemployed are probably not as good. So they already have a job. So this is a statistic that I learned from a staffing agency that 25% of people are willing to switch at any moment, because they did a survey and they found that 1 out of 4 Americans currently employed in the workforce were not looking for the job they currently have when they started working there. So they're in one job, perfectly fine with it. Opportunity comes up and they leave to pursue a better opportunity. That's 1 in 4 people currently working in their current position made that switch. So to me, that just says, all right, those people are out there. There's a lot of people out there. Think about your entire, local population of people who are working. Divide that by 4, and that's your potential talent pool. There's a lot of people out there. Now, we got to make sure it's the right opportunity for them. But that shows there's a lot of people who are willing to make a switch for the right opportunity. We just need to show them why working for your center is the right opportunity. If that makes sense. So at the end of the day, we just need to cast a wider net. Because a lot of times we're just posting on Indeed or the Facebook job posts or Craigslist. And I would argue that these places are not the greatest. I think there's a time and a place for them for certain positions, maybe like some lower volume, kind of maybe higher paid positions, remote positions that are in more demand. But I think for what we're trying to do, we're trying to attract people to come and work for us to switch. The main thing to point out with the Craigslist and Indeed is like, who are the people who are checking these job boards? Like, who's actively, going on here and looking for jobs? People who are unemployed, right? They're sitting on the couch, or they're actively looking to switch to a different job. They're unhappy everywhere they go. They're unhappy with their current job, so that they hop around from job to job. They're the ones who are on these boards all the time, or the person sitting on their couch trying to find a job. And exactly, Roger, not the superstars. They're not looking here. So why do we keep fishing in these ponds? If this is not the pond we want to find, why do we keep going in these? So where do we want to go instead? Facebook posts. or Facebook ads, excuse me. Same spot we're getting our customers, right? The same things that we post for getting customers in the door work for getting employees in the door. And so if we can cast a wide net, when I talk about the advertising side, I talk about how for like a $4 CPM, which is about what we typically see, that means that $4 gets you 1,000 impressions. So if you put $400, you get 100,000 impressions. That's a much, much wider net than the small pool of people who are on Craigslist or Facebook looking for jobs. That's a much smaller pool. Whereas if we can go somewhere here, we can open it up and get in front of, thousands of people. Because remember, 25% of people are willing to switch at any moment. We just need to get in front of them with and show them why you guys have a better opportunity. So as far as building job ads that convert and to actually attract people in, we're going to talk about the descriptions so that they generate interest, focusing on what you can win at, and that goes back a lot to the competitor side, like going against larger employees. And then I'm going to show you exactly what a good job ad looks like that has performed well for us in the past. And it's a structure, it's a template. So once you learn this template, you can apply it to your center and use it over and over again. All you got to do is change out the position, and if any of like the pay scale or anything changes, but everything else can stay the same. As far as job descriptions that generate interest, we're looking for something that's going to stop the scroll. So as people are scrolling through, I just did my presentation in Oklahoma yesterday, and I showed these people that the average person spends 5 to 6 hours a day on their phone. And that's not a mistake, 5 to 6 hours a day. They're on there and they scroll for almost half of it, 2 to 3 hours is like strictly social media. So we just want to get something to capture their attention. So get to stop the scroll, because if not, they just keep going and they don't see you. We want to list pay. And I get a lot of pushback on this because people are thinking, oh, my employees are going to see it. They're going to be mad. I'm going to have to give them raises. Or I don't want to put the top end range because they're going to think that they get that off the bat. And I just want to point out that 75% more clicks for people who do list pay. And I want to ask, if you're saying, I don't want to list that, I want to ask you a question is like, why should they take time to and apply and risk applying to your job if they don't even know what it's going to pay? If you're not willing to meet them halfway and tell them, here's what this job pays, why do they want to take time to go out and at least explore the opportunity? Because there's a time cost with applying and reading and paying attention to this. So why would they want to do that if they don't even know what it pays? So you don't have to put it on there, but you're going to be losing 75% of the clicks if you don't. We want to keep them short. We don't want to go through the roles and responsibilities and spell all that stuff out. Like there's a time for that. It's going to be at the interview. You can talk through the actual work that has to be done. But for right now, all we're trying to do is get their attention, get them to read through the rest of it and attract them. So keep it short, brief, and really just focus on the benefits. So focus on what they get out of it. Because remember, just like when we're trying to bring in customers, we want to focus on our ads on what they get out of it. They get to have fun. They get to have a special offer or deal. We're just trying to draw them in and entice them to take a further look. We don't want to put everything up front. There's a time, there's a sequence for everything. So this is the one that we use for John. So John in Rose City Bowl, this is one we use for him. You can see we use like the emojis. We try to get their attention, all caps at the top. And we're focusing solely on benefits here, what they get out of it. We put a top end and a bottom end and a top end range for wages. And I think it's very fair to assume that the bottom range is the start and the top range is what you could potentially make. So my argument is that the person who is driven, the top talent that you want to attract is going to see that top range and they're going to think, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to become that person who is worth that amount. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to try to demand that amount in the beginning. And you could clearly spell out, hey, this is the starting range. And if you work hard, here's what you can stand to make. But the best employees are the ones who see that top end range and say, I can earn that. I can get there. And then the rest is just spelling out, discounts, growth opportunities. and then you just apply now. Super short, simple, making sure, I'll go into the, the images and everything, but that's what we want to do to get their attention. Everyone follow me so far? Next piece is focusing on what you can win at. So this is when we're talking about going up against these warehouses or other big employers. Like Andrew, where you are, you have John Deere, and it's probably a big employer who's you just can't compete with, right? They're starting out $20 an hour, $22 an hour, and we know we just can't compete with them. But wages are only one part of the equation. There's some things that you can easily beat them on that the right person is going to be more attracted to than just wages alone. So your work environment is better than theirs. I'm sure you guys have all heard stories of the Amazon workers who have to pee in bottles so that they can meet their quotas and their numbers, and they're stressed out. And that just sounds like an awful job to have. And it's probably a lot, hopefully you guys don't have that level of stress in your center, but I bet I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that it's laid back, it's family fun, it's people like going to work at your center. So you have that on them. That's a big perk. Your schedules are more accommodating. You can move things around. You can cover shifts. You can work around family reunions, whatever it is. It's not like if you don't get this, you have to do this exact schedule or you're fired. You're able to work with your employees. So you're flexible. You have great growth opportunities. So who here wants to bring in, an employee who works hard and you can promote all the way up through? How many stories do we hear of how the best manager that they ever worked for was the guy who started out as a pin chaser and worked his whole way up? Those are the best employees. They learn everything. They're driven. They're loyal. You guys have opportunities. I'm sure you would love to find someone who you could bring in and promote. And so that's a big opportunity for someone if they're making a switch. The person who's long-term focused and thinking, hey, I'm going to start here, but there's positions above me that are open and I'm going to work my way up. And you guys have that to offer, and not everybody does. You also typically have some kind of free bowling offer or discounts on food and beverage. Sometimes it's extended to their family. Like everybody's a little bit different, but most everybody has some form of bowling or food discount available that they're not going to get at a warehouse. And so the conclusion of it is that the right employees are going to value this over a couple dollars an hour. That's more important to them. And no, this is not going to attract everyone, but the right people, it will. They're going to say, this is worth more than $2, $3, $4, $5 an hour because I'm going to enjoy this and I like working here instead. That looks like a more enjoyable position. You can weed out the mercenaries, as we call them. So that's how you can beat them at your game by not playing their game. As far as what a good job ad looks like, so this is one that's actually a video we did at a center up in Wisconsin. If any of you are part of the Summer Bowl Pass, this is Mark Bears' center. But this is for a cook. So if you look at it, same thing. You got the wages up top. They get free food and drink for the shift. They get free bowling for staff members, full-time and part-time available. It's fun. It's flexible. He's willing to promote people who are good. And video here of smiling employees. That's a key one if you can. So we have a whole modular session on how to create content and do photo shoots. But if you can, make sure to add on your shot list to do smiling employees. Because that's, at the end of the day, what they're looking at is like, do these people like being here? That's a greater indicator to them than anything else. But this is it. So you see the job description there, you see smiling employees, and then you want to take them over to a landing page when they click. So as far as automating the process, we want to try to save you time because let's face it, doing all this stuff does start to take a lot of time. And being proprietors, our time is already severely limited. There's not a lot of it left. So whatever we do, it has to be time efficient. So the way to do that is to use landing pages and forms to capture the relevant information. So like when they fill out their application, it's not just some paper application or a big long form. It's just when they click on apply now, it takes them to another page that I will hopefully be able to pull up here and show you. And from there, they just fill out their name, their email, that type of stuff. We also want to use a calendar system. So if you have a database or a CRM in place with scheduling, you can set your interview window, whatever's works for you, and say, hey, maybe Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning, whatever works for you. You can set all the times you're available, and just let them schedule a initial phone screen themselves. And you can automate it with text messages. Say, hey, click here. Thanks for applying. Click here to schedule your interview or your phone screen, and they'll go through and they'll take care of that whole thing. So you don't have to do anything except for call them at the appointed time. So how many people would like having a system like that, where you just, you run the ads, someone's interested, and all you have to do is give them a phone screen, 5-minute phone screen, to make sure that they're worth having come in person. That's where it starts to get nice. So you don't have to spend all your time recruiting. So yeah, this is the landing page I was talking about as far as where to send them. It looks like this. So again, we want to use in-house images. Have a photographer come out. If you guys are interested, I'm going to do another one of these webinars on creating the content, on how you can just, in 5 hours, you can have all the content that you need for like 5 years. But you want to use in-house images. You want it to be of your facility. You don't want to use stock images, because it doesn't connect with them. It's like static. But again, if you see here, it's the benefits again. So they read the benefits, they click over, remind them again of the benefits of why they're about to fill out this form, because even though it's only like 5 fields, it still takes some effort. So we want to kind of dangle that carrot in them for just a little bit longer. Keep the info basic. So if you look here, it's full name, phone number, email, and tell us about your past work experience. There's going to be a time for us to collect the rest of the info, the resumes, all that stuff. But for now, while they're interested, while we have them, let's just collect those things and we can follow up from there. Because if you make a super long, past 3 employers, your address, and every time you add something, you have a fall off from people who actually go through this process. So we want to make it easy in the beginning. And then if you have too many applicants coming through, which it sounds like we don't have that issue right now, once you have too many, then we can raise the bar and make it a little more difficult. We can start adding, resume or disqualifying questions. But first, let's get flow. Reduce friction, get flow, then add the friction back in once you have too many. And again, this is the best place to screen and filter candidates. You can start to add other questions like, have you ever been convicted of a felony, or do you have reliable transportation? Anything like that, you can start adding here. But again, keep it basic to start. You can get resumes later. In this field, resumes is, maybe 50% of people have them, 50 don't. So if you're going to require a resume up front, you're losing half of your candidate pool. You can always have them make it later, but I found that a work summary here works pretty well. You get a pretty good idea. They tell you what they're doing currently, maybe their last job or two, and they tend to make them relevant. So you can, in 3 or 4 sentences, see if there's someone who is worth contacting. So as far as what to say for them, speed of response is really important. I read a study that they say that the average top talent employee, it takes them 8 days to get a job, but the average company takes 23 to hire someone. So if we don't get in touch with them quickly, they're already going to, if they're in that open to move mode and we miss out on that window, they're gone. So I think a lot of times we're just slow to get back to them. How many times do you see an application come in, you're like, oh, it's, Thursday afternoon, I'll get around to it. Friday passes, and then you don't get to them until Monday. They've already moved on. They're either not interested or they forgot about it and the time has passed. So speed is really key. The other thing is that applicants prefer text messaging, especially the younger people. They don't want to do a phone or in person for the very first one. And don't get me wrong, I think that everybody should do in-person interviews, but I'm talking about the first interaction. Their first few interactions should be text messaging. That's what the studies show that people prefer. It's easy. They're going to read it. You can get across a lot of information that way. And then the other thing is they want to know where they're at in the hiring process. So they want to know if they're still being considered, if you looked at their resume or their work experience, or if they had the interview, or, hey, we're talking to a few different people. This is, they want to not be left in the dark. It's one of the main things that people complain about for the hiring process is like they don't know what's going on and it feels very disorganized. And then think about how that, if we go back to the very first pillar that we talked about, how we want them to feel like they're a $40,000 lead, they're starting the process off by a kind of a disjointed, not knowing what's going on process. And that's their first impression of you, is that it's not well put together. Whereas a couple text messages just so that we are forward thinking, we have a process in place, and it can go a really long way to fostering a great relationship out of the gate, because we all know that a first impression is everything. So this is our chance. The first impression doesn't start when they walk in. It starts at first contact, as far as getting back to them quickly and telling them where they're at. Hey, we just got your interview, or we just got your application. We scheduled your interview here. Looking forward to connecting. Hey, we just, we're considering a few candidates. We're going to let you know, or get back to you on who we've chosen in the next 2 days. Thanks again for coming out. Just each step, letting them know where you're at. Then the last piece I want to talk about is following a system that works, as far as like creating something that you can do over and over again and optimizing to get the result that you're looking for, which is hires of high quality candidates. So a couple things. We want to optimize for show rates, because anybody, you can put a 1 in the chat. Have you ever had an interview scheduled and the person didn't show up? I can't imagine, sometimes I feel like we're lucky to have 50%. So show up rates is a very key component. If we can get them to show up, it's going to increase our result by a huge factor. If we can go from 25% to 50%, we just doubled our hires. If we can get it higher, even further so. So I'm also a big fan of the initial phone screen, then in person. It's chopped off. A couple different reasons. First is low barrier to entry. So just a quick 5-minute phone call. Make sure that they're, show them that you're friendly, that you're a nice person, kind of pump them up on the opportunity. But it's also a chance for you to quickly assess if they're like a weirdo or someone who's not worth bringing in. Because remember, if you have an in-person interview, now they're in your building and you're supposed to talk to them for a half hour. Whereas if you can just screen them out on the phone, it's quick, it's done, no harm, no foul. And so you're much more likely, especially with the younger crowd, to get them to do an initial phone screen. You show them you're nice, that you're someone that they want to work with, and then you bring them in, and they don't have to be long. And then this is the key. If you're going to take one thing away from this whole presentation, this is the thing. Send text reminders before the phone screen, 1 hour and 1 day, both. So the day before, you're going to say, hey, we have you scheduled for your appointment tomorrow at 11 a.m. Looking forward to connecting. Then 1 hour before, you have it say, look forward to our call in an hour. I'll give you a call at this number. And remember, if you have a good CRM system in place, like a database in place, this is all automated. The appointment is in the calendar, and the system tells it to send a text 1 hour before. You don't have to do anything. Again, all you should have to do is make that call at the appointed time. Everything else is taken care of. So we talked about this, a lot of this, making it low barrier to entry, not assuming that they've decided on you. Because remember, we're not talking about just someone who's job hopping or just, unemployed and wants the first job they can get, or is trying to cross off a box to keep their unemployment. We want like top tier talent. And if that's the case, they probably have 3 or 4 options, if we're being honest. So kind of treating them like, hey, you're lucky to be having this interview here with me is probably not the best way to start out if we're looking for top tier talent. Not saying that we don't have standards. We should absolutely have standards, but kind of assuming that they've already decided that this is their first choice is probably not the best way to go. We want to just show them and sell them on our opportunity and why we're the best place to work with. Like I said, don't expect them to show up physically on the first meeting. Again, I don't want that to get across, because I do believe in in-person interviews, especially for this industry. But on the first interaction, I think phone screen is the way to go, because I've gotten a lot of pushback on it. That's why I touch on this. They're like, oh, I'm old school, they have to show up. And I agree with that. But maybe just talk to them on the phone for 5 minutes first, and they'll actually show up. We see a huge increase, because we've done this with centers where they only do in person, and then we talk to them and say, just try it this way, and all of a sudden they triple the amount of people they hire, just because they took that one extra step. That's why I'm saying follow a system that works. We know this works. We've seen it work for lots of different centers. That's why I'm explaining this. Make a phone call for the first interaction. And if anybody has an iPhone, FaceTime is a great option for this too. That's about as close as you're going to get for an in-person interview. You can see them. You can see if they have, something crazy in their background, or, crazy piercings or whatever, your disqualifiers, face tattoos. You can see that with a FaceTime. So if you have iPhone, that's a great option, especially for the younger people. They hop on FaceTime all the time. It's easy to do. I like that, David. Yeah, bring your bowling shoes. Yeah, why not? They come in, they get a free game. I like that. They can kind of experience it. And Bob, yeah, free drink. Why not? Just start the things off on a good note. So I want to see, what are some of the key takeaways you guys have gotten from this so far? I'd like to see from you. What stood out from you guys the most so far? I want to see who's paying attention. Or what are you going to implement? Let's see in the chat. Hopefully there's at least one. Text and phone screen, yes. I would say probably, yeah, my top two, Bob. I would agree. Who else? Emojis, yeah. Sending the text message, yeah, we do that. Yeah, Roger. Yeah, we do that. And yeah, Mike, the emojis do stand out. You can do that actually for any Facebook ads, like the ones for customers. We always put emojis in there. Usually that's the first 2 or 3 characters is emojis. Yes, yeah, David. I think from the mindset, that's definitely the way to go. As much as a client, if not more, because how many clients? Maybe you have some, but there's not a lot of like $40,000 or $25,000 clients, right? Yes. Yeah, invest in your people, right, Andrew? Did I get everybody? Facebook, yeah, Don. Using that instead, because that's where we cast a wider net. That's really all it's about. That's the only reason we use Facebook, is a lot of people use Facebook. Rate of pay on ads. Yeah, and so Kim, are you saying that's because you guys are not including it, or you have included it? And thanks for the shout out, Anna Marie. All of the above. Hope you're taking notes. A lot of this stuff, pretty much all of this stuff is being done for you. Cool. So let's keep going on. So I'm a big believer in action. So what are you guys going to do in your center? What's the next piece of action you're going to actually implement? That's the next piece I want. Not include. Okay, yeah, Kim, totally agrees. 75% is what we came up with. And remember, the first number is the bottom end of the range. So whatever that is, you already know what your bottom end of the range is, and then you just include the top as like something to work towards. Notes and pictures, I like it. And yeah, if anyone wants the slides at the end of this, I'm happy to send that over. It does go to Instagram, Anna Marie, yeah. It's both. So Meta is the company. They own Facebook and Instagram, and the advertisements are on the same platform. So it goes across both. But getting back to the action, what's one thing that you guys are going to put into practice? And you can write it in the chat or just write it down. But I really want people to take action from this, because we can, get all the insights we want. We have all these great takeaways, But if we don't actually do anything with it, we technically didn't learn. I heard a great quote the other day that says, insights without behavior change means you didn't learn anything. The example they use is, if I showed you a red card and gave you a slap, and then showed you a red card, gave you a slap, and I showed you a red card again, if you don't duck, you haven't learned anything. So what are we going to do? What behavior are we going to change to put into our centers to make sure that we're going to improve on this? Write that down somewhere. So Andrew, that's a great point. So I might even add this in the presentation, because that is something we've run into. The issue with the Facebook ads and job posts, the only issue is that it basically removes targeting abilities. So because of the DOL, the Department of Labor, they actually sued Facebook for discrimination because people would target certain demographics or whatever they wanted to target for their job. And technically that's a violation of anti-discrimination laws in place. So they got sued for that, and they said, no more, you can't really do any targeting. So the only targeting you can really do is geographic. You're allowed to do that. So you can drop a pin at your center and do a radius, but you can't target based off of age or sex or anything like that. You can't target because that's against the DOL. So that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up, Andrew. You just have to do it location-based. Interest. So I don't think you can do much with that. You can do lookalikes though, Andrew. So you can actually upload your customer list. If that is on pace with what you're looking for, you can do lookalikes. Or if you had some kind of list of employees, the only thing with the lookalikes is you need 100 people, but you can do lookalike audiences. I'm reading through yours, Mike. I like it. I like it. I'm telling you, if you do that, you will triple, the amount of people coming through. It's the little things, right? Just like anything, it's doing the little things right. And hopefully you can use a system that automates it. I'm happy to share. The one that we use is called Go High Level, and it has all these capabilities, and that's the one we use. Yeah, so that's a good thing to bring it up, Anna Marie, is that if you're looking for a mechanic and they must be older, so you can do like an 18 for the demographic, for the age cutoff, just because it's adults and not adults. But I think the point that you're highlighting, Anna Marie, is that there's a self-selection baked in there too, right? So I doubt many 21-year-olds are going to apply to be a bowling mechanic. And I will say that even with a lot of this stuff, hiring for mechanics is still very difficult just because it's such a small pool. That one is still difficult. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, the ad copy. It goes a long way. It's one component. The pictures, I'd say, grab a lot of attention, and then the ads, which I will share with you guys. So I'm going to have this. Actually, we've been doing some questions. Anyone have any other questions? Andrew, we're gonna be sharing the job post template. Does anyone have any other questions before we go to the freebies to thank you guys for staying on? Okay. So if you guys text your email to this number here, I can send you the job ad templates, and we have a step-by-step training of how to use the software that we use. So if you get this software, use the software, you work with us. However, we're agnostic. Like if you use your software or a different one, we'll do a step-by-step training of like how to set some of this stuff up. And then I'll give you the job ad templates so that all you have to do is, change the titles and the pay, and you just have to change the details to match for you. Are you looking for a management position? Are you saying like for our center or for your center, David? But yeah, I'll send this to you guys. So just text your email over to here, and I'll make sure that we get this out to you for anyone who wants it. And then I always end with this, that, I really believe in giving you guys all the secret recipes, quote unquote, that we have, because at the end of the day, someone still has to cook. And so if you want our help cooking, then this is my cell phone. Feel free to reach out to me. We can chat, see if maybe there's a potential fit for us. If then we can look at potentially working together. But that's all I had for today. I really appreciate you guys coming on. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, post it. If you're not a part of the Striking Success group yet, join the group. I'll send out the link. But if you got value from this, please post it. Post one of your takeaways in the Facebook group, because that's where I really want to try to foster some of this stuff to help everyone, all these awesome proprietors we have in our group. So please send that. And thank you so much for coming on, guys. I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Thanks again.